So I'd like to begin with the future mathematician as a child.
Okay.
Where is he, let's say, 8 to 10? What are his parents like? What is his family like?
You mean mathematician?
Yeah. You at that age.
Oh, me? But
yes,
it depending on the timing. You know, when I was growing up in Hong Kong,
yes.
It's a very different period than now. You know, we have a large group of very talented students in Hong Kong at that time.
Oh, I don't want students yet. I want family.
Family, yeah.
Let's begin with family. Soon,
my family left China in 1949.
Just after the revolution.
Well, basically at the time,
at the time of the revolution.
When the communists is coming from north.
Yes.
My father works in Swatow, is a harbor in South China.
South China, yes.
So they escaped by fisherman's boat. The whole family moved down.
And it's a large family.
Yeah, we have 10. Well, later, at that point, we have smaller family. But we have my mother's family at the same time.
Oh.
We went together, more than 10 people. And my father was intellectual, but he didn't realize that it took a long time to come back to mainland. And he thought that within a couple of years, the national government would win and come back. So they all expect to go back.
It was going to be temporary. You were just leaving.
Right.
Till the communists were defeated.
Right. So they didn't prepare for it. So they thought just temporarily, but then immediately got into trouble because the money that he brought down was not enough, and he started to actually run a farm.
A farm. He was an intellectual, and now he was a farmer.
He thought he could make money out of the farm, to make a living out of it, but he failed miserably. In a matter of 2 years, he used up all the money he got. So we end up, actually to live in a farm still, but no money, and he has to go out to teach in colleges. And it takes a long time. He took about a couple of positions. In those days, a professor, unless you are teaching in Hong Kong University, which is a colonial university, yes. Only university in Hong Kong. Otherwise, you are paid according to hour. Not according to day, according to hour. You teach 1 hour, teach this hour, I give you $100 and all that. So he has to travel a long way from Yuanlong, who is a farming village, and to Hong Kong Island. A long way to travel, about a couple of hours one way and back and forth. So we didn't see him that often, but still, he has been the most influential, mentor for me, because I start to learn about Chinese philosophy and Western philosophy when I was a boy, like 10-year-old. My father has a great expectation on me. He felt that the family should be important in intellectual wealth.
Yes.
And he taught me when I was 10-year-old. I didn't know much about what he taught me actually. Talking about Plato, talking about all this Greek philosophy, what they think about. My father is not a mathematician, he doesn't know math. But on the other hand, he did know a great deal of philosophy, Greek philosophy.
Yes.
He was telling me how mathematics and how science are important in those days. And
he saw it as part of the large humanistic enterprise.
Right. He also very interested in Confucius and the Chinese philosophy, both sides.
We'll progress across your life, but I think later in the future, closer to now, you wrote a book about the connection between Chinese philosophy and math.
Right.
So his lessons stayed with you.
Yeah, not only philosophy, but also Chinese literature and Chinese novels and Chinese poems. All this has enlarged the scope of my thinking.
Were you singled out in a way among the children as somebody he had particular hopes for, or was this the whole family's enterprise that your brothers and sisters also had this?
My family is large. By the time by 1954, we have 10 We have 8 children together,
Yes.
8 siblings, and we are very poor. We, you know, in the early 1950s, we don't have enough to eat, not let alone education. So with such a poor situation, with the poverty situation, the family has to make a choice: who should be more
I see.
more educated.
Everybody wasn't going to be.
It's not possible at that time because we are really hungry. But nevertheless, I think my father has a heart to teach all the children. And some of them work harder, some of them did not work as hard. And I work very hard, and so is my elder brother.
So in life, did 2 of you become intellectuals only, or more than?
Well, we have 3 brothers and 5 sisters, and I'm in the middle. And my father put a lot of hope on my elder brother, but he got sick when he was 12 or so, and it was gradually becomes very, very bad, and finally he died. I mean, that's quite a few years ago. So my father put effort in both my elder brother and myself. My younger brother was younger, so it didn't show as much. My father died when I was 14.
14.
Yeah, so it's very early. But what he taught me stayed in my mind all the way. And so, as I said, he taught me philosophy of Western style, Eastern style. And this enlarged my scope quite a bit because I'm thinking about things more abstract than my classmate students.
So that was the connecting link, the abstract thinking.
More abstract thinking. Also trying to understand nature. He was talking about the Greek philosophy, Plato and all this, how they inspire things. I don't understand what he is talking in general, but I got the point that nature is very important.
Yes.
And I'm used to think more abstractly than my other
When
classmates.
did your formal education begin?
Well, formal education was in a village school. Primary school was lousy, but then start in my 2nd grade, I was getting better. But then it's interesting. It's still a village school. Most of the kids are kids from the farm.
Yeah, and they're going to stay farmers.
They would stay farmers. And one of the best students in the school became a farmer.
Huh.
So anyway, I was, educated together with them. And at one point, I was doing quite well in my school. Then the teacher thought that I could be leader of some group of students to help them to teach, to help them to do exams. So they let me in charge. Then I led about 5 or 6 students. And then I become kind of a gangster because I don't know how to teach and I don't know how to take care of them. So we pretend we go to school. The teacher let me stay whatever I want to do. So we wander on the street and wander on the mountains and do all kinds of things, including, going to the market, stealing some things, and have even fist fight with kids on the street. Now this sounds very bad, of course, but on the other hand, I look back, I think that's actually not a bad training. Because I had to deal with some very rough situation.
Yes.
You're fighting against some kids on the street and wandering around, and I have to deal with snakes for example, in the mountains. And I have to deal with small animals and running around and all that. And I'm leading some small group of people, and I have to be tough. So my father actually never knew that I was on the street like this. And my mother did not know either until before she died. I told her. She was very surprised.
Really?
So there's a very
this forms your character. What forms your mind?
Well,
your father certainly.
My father actually at that time he started teaching me philosophy and also Chinese literature and make me to recite all poems and classic Chinese. I did that at home. But during school time, I wander around.
You wonder, yeah.
So in a way, my father thought that I was still learning because when I'm at home,
Right.
I'm doing the homework he gave to me.
Right.
But I didn't do anything for the school.
Because you have a big life, I want to get you at least into high school.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
Well, in a very interesting way, I more or less failed. There's a common examinations by the government in order for us to go to a public school, high school.
Yeah.
I failed the first level, and turns out the second level I barely get in, and the second level do not allow me to get into public school automatically. Instead, they give a financial aid for me if I apply to a private school.
Really?
So I was actually not the best student, although I didn't learn much. And then I decided to apply to a private school, who my father knew some people there. And I studied very hard just for the entrance exam.
That exam, yes.
And then I passed. So in a very funny way, I get into one of the best private Christian high school.
Oh, yeah.
And my tuition was paid by the government. And so I could afford to go to the high school, and it was one of the best. So I'm very pleased that happens, but it's in a way by default because I failed the level 1. But
life is not a straight path.
It's not a straight path.
Is there a teacher at this good private school that influences you?
Right. There's several teachers, and the teachers on mathematics are excellent. They know how to inspire me and make me feel this is a beautiful subject. So when I was in 8th grade actually, I start to know the beauty of geometry and asymmetric approach and all that. I was really fascinated by those works because a simple axioms, few axioms, was able to derive many interesting patterns in theorems in geometry.
You use a word that so many mathematicians use. I'm a historian, I'm learning the culture, and you use aesthetic term. You say the beauty of it is what drew you to it.
Right, the beauty of it. Simplicity and beauty of it. So it's very similar to the poems I read in Chinese poems. I mean, simple but very meaningful, which explain nature to me.
Yes.
And I feel the same thing in mathematics.
So it's not opposites for you, it's the same.
No, it's the same.
It's the same. Yeah. So we have to get you educated beyond high school.
Yeah.
They are beginning to sense that you have a good mind. The teachers are responding to you particularly as a good student at this point?
I did very well in high school when I was in, from 8th grade on, I did well in mathematics.
So it's certain that you're going to go to university, except for economics, maybe.
My father died when I was in 9th grade.
Yes.
And that was a disaster because my family has no hope almost to survive. And some of the relatives were suggesting me not to go on, just to go to a farm to raise ducks. I mean, but my mother is very deterministic. She felt strongly that we should go on, so she supported, and with my sisters and myself, we'll go to work. I start to tutor students to make money in order for my life to go on. So I insist on doing well. But I work for it, not only schoolwork, but also trying to raise some money.
Of course, to get family.
Yeah.
You go to university in Hong Kong.
Yeah. Well, many of my classmates in high school, they're much more well-to-do. Some of them come to Berkeley, some of them go to the university in America or in England. But I could not afford it. So the only school I can go to is in Hong Kong. And Chinese University of Hong Kong was just established in 1962, I think.
So I'm guessing it did not have a rich mathematics department?
Well, they just start to build. I won't say it's very rich, but it's rather bedrock, in fact. But in those days, to have a PhD as a faculty is not easy already.
Yes.
But they start to bring in some. And this makes a big deal of difference for me because one of the teachers just graduated from Berkeley as a PhD. He came and then he started to teach in a, I guess, American style, he just graduated from Berkeley. So it's a close interaction between teacher and students, and which rather non-standard in Chinese teaching. Usually in Chinese teaching, you just sit there and do homework.
And you listen and you take notes.
But this guy called Saraf, he was teaching in American style. He asked students to stand up to talk and all that. So actually, I becomes very active in during the class, and he made many mistakes, and I helped him to fix it, to fix the mistakes.
And he didn't mind.
He didn't mind. Not only that, at the end, after a couple of weeks, he invited me to go to his home to help him to prepare lecture notes for the class.
Really?
So in fact, we wrote a lecture notes together.
So he's really quite an extraordinary person in the sense of being open-minded.
Very open-minded, yeah.
So does he begin to have ambitions for you?
Well, he feels that I'm doing very well, and he started to talk with me about what I can learn in Chinese U. He felt I basically know whatever they can teach me in the university. He hoped that I could graduate early so that I could go abroad. Because to do research, there's not much hope in Hong Kong in those days. So he wanted me to go abroad, but the university is very stringent. They won't allow me to graduate 1 year ahead, despite I finished all the courses as well. So they insist not to do it. Saraf was a very capable man, very insistent. He got me to apply to Berkeley. And he was telling, because he just graduated from Berkeley, he tell his friends, and one of the most important person is Salason, who is a young faculty in Berkeley. He told the Berkeley faculty that this guy from his friend Saraf in Hong Kong is very good. He'd like me to come earlier.
So is this, in your own mind, now you're 17, 18, something, a fantasy that you cannot believe, or you are now beginning to believe in yourself as a future mathematician?
I was very confident about myself very early days. Actually, even when my father died, I determined to be a good scholar. Very early days. My father was a scholar, and I felt strongly I would be able to succeed and to do well.
So the question is only how to do it economically and so forth.
Right.
How can you go to Berkeley in terms of the money? How is that possible?
First of all, I'm very confident about myself. I felt if I want to do it, I will be able to do it. I do not believe that I could not succeed to do it.
Yes.
So I try all means to do it.
Right.
So in the case of Berkeley, Salason got the Berkeley department, convinced the Berkeley department, who was chaired by a Japanese mathematician called Kobayashi, and he was a geometer, and he worked with S.S. Chen, who later became my advisor. Chen was probably the most influential man in Berkeley department. He is a godfather there, I would say. And I guess Chen looked at my file and decided I would be very good. So they have helped me on getting a very good fellowship.
So I think it was IBM in the end that wound up.
Yeah, there's IBM fellowship. Give $3,000 per year was an excellent fellowship. So I was very glad that I was able to do it.
So, by the way, how's your English at this point?
Very bad.
Very bad.
Still not good.
So this is not a problem either. Maybe because mathematics is its own language?
Well, the fellowship, first of all, do not need me to teach. So that helps a lot. I have a strong accent, and so when I taught students, may not be used to it at the beginning, but later they become more used to it.
But in terms of learning, there wasn't going to be a problem.
Oh no. Learning is never any problem for me because in high school we used textbooks which are English, written in English.
Oh,
So
okay.
we can read, we can
This is the advantage of Hong Kong,
Yeah,
that there is English in the world around
right,
you.
Right. It's a colonial style school.
So I told you before that in a way this is the story of your curiosity.
Right.
So you've gotten to Berkeley. It still seems a miracle to talk about it, but there you are in Berkeley. You're in the mathematics department from the beginning, probably.
Right.
How are problems chosen for you? Which direction in mathematics begins to be important?
Oh, well, it's interesting because when I was in Hong Kong, I read many books, but I was not guided correctly, I think. And the library is very poor, not too many good books. So I read all the books by myself, and I have the idea that the mathematics which cover more abstract things are more important.
Right.
And
Pure mathematics.
Pure mathematics.
Yes.
The more pure, the better.
Yeah.
And I was under the impression functional analysis is probably the best subject in the whole mathematical
This
realm.
you came to by yourself.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I always thought that that's my future. Then I came to Berkeley, and I start to know there are many subjects I've never, contact with, and I literally study from morning at 8 a.m. all the way to 5 p.m. non-stop, because I have the many subjects I've never learned before. I want to learn it.
Yes.
So I even eat lunch during class. This is the first year.
Yeah.
From morning 8 until...
Not to miss a moment. Yes.
Miss a moment. I learned very extensively. And after the first quarter, it's a quarter system, I decided that functional analysis is nice and good, but it's not the subject I want to get into. So I start to see the beauty of geometry, topology, and
Again, beauty.
Yeah,
yes.
Right. So I start to fall in love with that. In fact, I came to Berkeley in 1969 in the fall, September. In fact, I landed September 1st. And there are many things that I do not know about America, but I start to be more used to it. In December that year, there was Christmas time. And a lot of people, most of the people left
to
campus, go home.
Yes.
And there's a Christmas holiday, but I have nothing to do, and yes. I don't have enough friends to travel around. And it's not like nowadays they're a lot cheaper to travel, airplane and all that.
Right.
Airplane was just starting.
Unthinkable. Yeah.
So I stayed in the library all the time. Now, the interesting thing is that in those days in Berkeley has so many graduate students. Graduate students do not have an office. So I always use the library as my office. I stay there, whenever I can. In those days, there are not too many journals, not too many books still, even though it's much more than in Hong Kong. So I wander around in the library all the time, and I open the journals, and I normally read all the papers, at least by title, and I don't understand them, but I still just read casually and all that. I found it very interesting because some of the papers strike me as very interesting. Some of them may be too difficult, but I still remember those titles.
Yes.
And during the vacation time, during Christmas season, I read a paper which I found fascinating. And I start to think about research in those directions. There was a paper written by Jack Milner, who probably you know. And Jack Milner wrote very beautifully this paper, and I start to read the references referred by him in this paper, and read his own paper. I understand the whole paper from beginning to end, and I absorb the paper, and I start to develop more in that direction by myself. So after a couple of weeks, I found some interesting directions that I can do by myself. And it's also very interesting because this relates to group theory, which is a subject I never really good on. But I remember some of the work that I learned from my teacher in Hong Kong.
Mm-hmm.
It was his PhD thesis.
Mm-hmm.
I learned it in a casual manner, namely in the tea. I asked, he said, what subject do you cover in your dissertation? He mentioned some names, and I remember that. So during the time when I arrived in Berkeley, when I need to look at Jack Milner's paper, I remember the names. And I went to the library to find the names, and I found out the relevance of this work to my work that I need to do.
Yes.
So it was very interesting. So combining all the experience, I was able to finish my first paper in that way.
In a way, you're educating yourself at this point.
Right. So this is a subject that I think very few people in Berkeley in geometry learns. And in the first year, there was first quarter, I took a course, and it was taught by Blaine Lawson, who is now a professor in Stony Brook. So after the first quarter, he was teaching the second quarter. So I went to tell him what I learned and what I found out.
Yes.
And he was very pleased, and he go through what I did. He agreed that what this looks very interesting, and also
a good direction.
Good direction.
Yes.
So he started to work with me together in a similar direction.
In the context of geometry.
In the context of group theory applied to topology and geometry.
Okay.
So we worked out something also, and in the second paper. So I should say that I'm rather successful the first year.
You're quite young, I believe.
I was quite young, 20.
20 at this
Yeah.
point. Are you required to do a thesis as an undergraduate? Or
No.
So there doesn't have to be a culminating work as an undergraduate?
Well, I'm a graduate student at that point.
You're already a graduate student?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Well, I did not finish Berkeley. I mean, in Chinese University of Hong Kong. But they admitted me as a graduate student.
You were admitted as a graduate student.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were 20. Yeah. You were a graduate student.
Yeah.
You've touched differential geometry as a subject. You're encouraged.
Yeah.
But then now, if you're a graduate student, you have to do a thesis.
Right.
And again, we race only because there's so much.
Right. But of course, I was first year. I did not think about requirement for thesis. I did not even pass I have not even taken the qualified exam for PhD yet. So after I finished this paper, I took the qualified exam.
Okay. So
only after that I will be able to look for a teacher. So anyway, after I finished these two papers, my teacher, Chen, was on sabbatical leave. So I didn't know what she is interested in yet.
Right.
So only after this, in the summer of 1970, I looked for him and asked him to be my teacher, to be my advisor. So he asked me to look into questions in geometry, but he doesn't give me any problem. He just thought that maybe I explore more first. And then somehow, that summer, he went to Princeton. He met his good friend, Andrew Wei, who died now. Both of them passed away. But anyway, he come back from Princeton, and he told me, Wei said that Riemann hypothesis is close to is mature enough to be solved. And then he said, you should look into that.
So he pointed you in that direction.
The Riemann hypothesis, and so he's my teacher. So I was told to look at it.
You used a wonderful phrase: mature enough to be solved.
Yeah.
When is a problem mature enough to be solved? What does that mean? That so much work has taken it?
Well, I mean, a problem can be not mature because there's nowhere to start to attack it, but there are enough tools maybe.
Okay.
But that's just an intuition. Intuition means that there's something that we can do, but you may encounter great difficulty nonetheless.
So this becomes the direction of your thesis?
No.
I
was rebelling enough that I did not touch. I never touched that problem.
Oh, you never did?
All the way until now, I never touched that problem. Instead, I was excited by other problems. So I was interested in geometry, metric geometry, curvature, and all that in the first 2 papers. But then I felt this direction is not very rich in the future. It's interesting and could be good, but not as rich as algebraic geometry or complex geometry, which I start to learn. And I found it very fascinating, the rich structure of complex geometry and algebraic geometry. So I start to be interested in it. And of course, Chen is one of the founders of complex geometry. And ironic enough, he did not tell me to work on those problems. He told me to work on Riemann hypothesis. But in any case, I start to feel strongly about some questions in complex geometry. So, and also at the same time, I was interested in Einstein's theory of relativity. Because it is also geometric. And I was reading and taking some class on general relativity already. So I was thinking about what Einstein wrote down in the equation.
I want to interrupt just to make sure I understand. So at this point, Einstein's theory is not proven. It's a conjecture.
Einstein has written an equation, which is called Einstein equation. Einstein equation was tested. And it is basically correct, but not completely understood.
Not completely understood.
And then you want to solve the equation, and the equation is difficult to solve, except a couple that was known, and they always have some singularity. So space-time has singularity means there are places where law of physics do not hold. And this is where bothersome to many physicists. And I was looking at it also myself. And I think we should look for space-time which is non-singular, where everything can still hold law of physics. So from the point of view of geometry, I thought in terms of geometry now, the Einstein equation basically says that some part of the curvature is equal to matter distribution. So I said, okay, let's assume there's no matter at all, so vacuum. Could we still have very non-trivial curvature? Because Einstein equation tells you some part of the curvature would be trivial because there's no matter, but it's only some part of the curvature, not the whole thing. So I question myself, if just this part of the curvature is equal to 0, would that mean the whole curvature equals 0 or not? So that's a question I ask myself. I could solve the problem, but then in the course of reading all the books in the library, I found a paper by Calabi on. Calabi doesn't care about relativity and doesn't care about physics in general, but he outlined a program to write down, to construct solution of Einstein equation, not in Lorentzian case, but in so-called Euclidean case, where the part of the curvature could be 0, and yet the full curvature tensor is not 0. So I was really fascinated by that. So during that summer, when Chen asked me to look at the Riemann hypothesis, I decided this problem is far more interesting. So I start to work on that problem instead.
Is that again what goes into the thesis direction, or no?
It took much longer time.
Yes. I think it was the late 70s before you.
Right. So, but I start to work on that problem.
Anyway,
and I start to build all the kind of references and all kind of foundation knowledge that I need to know about this problem. So in the meanwhile, I still give some seminar talks for Chen. Chen asked me to do it. And then somehow in the fall of 1970, so September, Chen asked me to present what I have done already in his seminar. So I present it. There's a large crowd come to listen to it. And I think Chen probably got some opinion from other people. and felt that what I did is enough for a thesis.
Really?
So he said, well, why don't you just graduate with that thesis? So that's how it became. But I still want to do this problem that I learned in complex geometry. But at the same time, I also work on subjects in minimal surfaces and all that. So one very important thing for me is during the first year when I was in Berkeley, I had a very good course that I took from Chuck Morley. Chuck Morley is probably one of the best person in nonlinear elliptic equation. And he took the course. And many students do not like his course for some reason I don't understand. But I was very interested in his course. So I took the course faithfully. And actually, during the Vietnam War, Cambodian bombing period, Berkeley has a strike. And many people, many lecturers call off teaching. So topology, they have no class, and geometry, no class. And I was taking this course from Morley. Morley, no student come except me.
No.
Morley is a very interesting classical, very traditional gentleman. He will teach when I show up. So end up I was one-to-one teaching with him for the whole quarter. And he treated me very nicely, and he started to prepare just for me to orient the progress according to what I need. And he even come to library to figure out what the best is.
Really?
So I learned a great deal from him. And during that period of time, I start to feel nonlinear equation would be a key to many questions in geometry. So at that point, I already start to think that it would be good to see a merge between geometry with nonlinear analysis in terms of elliptic equations, and also with topology.
You're unusual, I believe, in really being interested in mathematics and physics at the same time. Is this common?
Well, I don't know if it's common or not, but I was very fascinated by the natural phenomena that appears in theoretical physics. And so actually, I learned general relativity already in Berkeley.
Yes.
I learned also, standard physics course in Chinese University in Hong Kong.
Right.
Electromagnetism and all that. I did reasonably well, but still, it's not enough for me to really get into the problem I need to solve.
Right.
So the first time I really get into a joint venture between research between physics and mathematics was in 1973.
Okay.
In 1973, there was a big conference in Stanford, 3 weeks conference. Basically, all geometers from the whole world come into Stanford that summer, August. So that conference was organized by Chen and Oxerman, a local professor in Stanford. They invite a physicist by the name of Robert Garros, who is a relativist, who come to give a talk in Stanford conference. So I just graduated not long, 1973. I graduated in 1971.
At 22.
Yeah. So I was, I was invited to give some talks.
Yes.
I did reasonably well already. Yes. And Chen and Oxerman invited me to give two talks. And I listened to the talk by Robert Garros. He started to formulate some rather important problems in general relativity into the language of geometry. And I was really fascinated by those questions. So I started to think about those problems. And then what I encourage Fred is that he said these are very fundamental questions in general relativity. If you can solve it using geometry, it would be very rewarding. So I take it for granted, so I've spent a lot of time to think about it.
This is going to be now your
in
direction.
In one of the directions I choose. But overall, what I think is that I want to combine technology from analysis, nonlinear analysis, with topology, with geometry, and with some inspiration or intuition from physics. We want to develop the whole subject.
Are we still dealing with pure mathematics, pure abstraction, or have you changed?
I would say I start to feel geometry is a real subject, and it can be used to solve important problems in equations, or in engineer, or in physics already. So this problem in general relativity is, I look at it as a problem in geometry, but more importantly, I feel the way to approach it is using nonlinear analysis, the way that I'm thinking. And this turns out to be ideal
That's
testing.
the key insight.
Right.
That's the key insight.
So in those days, before 1970s, most geometers do not like the concept of nonlinear equation. They think this is a subject only people in applied mathematics will touch, and only engineers would care about these problems. But I thought that this is a too narrow point of view. As I said, when I was young, my father always taught me that I should look at things globally. All subjects under the sun should be linked in some way. And I felt this is a very important tool. There's no reason that we don't use it.
I'm going to phrase this in an odd way.
Yeah.
When does the larger world of mathematics begin to notice you? I mean, you have good professors. You are taking on serious, difficult problems. Is it through...
Well, when I graduated in 1971, Chen is a big, famous man, and he wrote very good letters for me. And I think many people recognize me as a youngster. And, when I graduated, Harvard made me an offer, Yale made me an offer, Princeton made me an offer, Chicago made me an offer.
So you're not worried about eating?
No.
You're going to get a good university.
Well, actually, Institute once made me an offer. I asked the opinion from Chen about what is the best place to go. Now, it's an interesting thing. I was rather idealistic, although my family is still poor. And when I was a still graduate student, I sent half my money back home, to help them financially. And Harvard offered me a 3-year job with $14,500. I still remember.
Yes.
Several other universities offer about the same. But Institute for Advanced Study offer 1-year job, postdoc, with $6,400. So I went to talk with my teacher, Chen. I said, well, I got these offers. What do you advise? I didn't tell him exactly how much they offered me. Chen said that, well, Institute for Advanced Study has trained many good young students, young PhDs, and many people change after they went there. Any mathematician in their whole lifetime should at least spend 1 year there. So you should go there. So I did not argue with him, so I decided, okay, so I will go there.
So you turned down a bigger offer.
Yeah.
For this.
So I got only 1 year offered in the Institute, and Harvard gave me 3 years. And Harvard's offer is double more salary than what Institute could offer me. So I was very idealistic. I think that's okay. I don't need that much money, and $6,400 is more than $3,000, which I've been getting from Berkeley. So that's fine enough.
Right.
So that's what I did, and I went there for 1 year.
Where do you, again, just because it's such a rich life and such little time,
right?
Where do you land that works for you in terms of the work you want to do?
Well, I went to Stony Brook after, first of all, I learned a lot from that year in the Institute. I have many good friends that has been always very important for me. For example, I met Shing-Tung
Yes.
who was a student at here. At here was faculty in the institute who I learned, and also the Borel and all these very important mathematicians. They helped me to think about mathematics in general. And then I went to Stony Brook and I learned metric geometry from people there. And Jim Simons was a chairman at that time, and I learned something from him. He was a very good geometer. But the major change was in Stanford. Bob Oxerman, who was reading my paper, who found that fascinating, he asked me to come to visit Stanford. So I decided to go to visit Stanford. But I should also say it's not completely out of mathematics only, because I was dating my girlfriend in California.
Personal matters always
important.
Always affect things. Yes.
Yeah. So I went. So it's closer to my girlfriend.
Yeah.
But I went there, and Stanford doesn't have much of geometry there, but they are very good in equations, differential equations, nonlinear equations. So I arrived there. As I said, we have this conference which I attend. Then I learned this problem from Robert Garros.
Yes.
But most importantly, in Stanford, I met Leon Simon, who was my colleague as young, PhD just finished. And then I met my student, Rick Schoen. So 3 of us were there and we talked extensively. I started to build up my knowledge about nonlinear equations. And so I learned something from Morley, but it's not enough. I started to learn from my friends.
Yes.
And Rick Schoen, who was, in a way, my student with Leon Simon, but in fact, he is equal to us. We develop things together. And
so you're an interesting combination of somebody who can work in isolation,
right.
and somebody who works with colleagues quite well. And in fact, collaboration has been very big in your life. I'm going to ask that very general question.
Right.
How is it? Because I've read about you, and people actually wonder at the degree that you collaborate, and you collaborate around the world, really. So this
is starting point. When I collaborated with Lawson, as I told you.
Yes.
I mean, the very beginning when I was a student, I got some idea, I taught him, and he provided some idea, we worked together. I collaborated with Lawson several times. But this time is more extensive because Leon Simon was very young, and he gave courses. I went to his courses, and I tell him what I know about geometry. He told me what he knows about nonlinear equations. And I learned in a very basic way what he taught in the classes. And I have worked with Rick Schoen. He was single, and we worked together day and night. I mean, so in the daytime we went to seminars, went to courses, and after that we went out to dinner. After that we come back. We also discuss things again. I'm
going to ask again, maybe even a vulgar question, the issue of credit.
Yeah.
When the great insight comes, or the published piece, in mathematics, it seems to me that a number of names become attached.
Right.
Maybe it's not even a problem of competition.
Well, that could be. There are many people fought because of that.
Yeah.
And I think we have to be generous to each other, because sometimes in this paper you give more credit, you contribute more. In the other paper you contribute less. I mean, so even now, I mean, if you look at it in the long term, I think people should be happy. But on the other hand, sometimes people fight on small credits for that is extremely important and lost out some big insight on other things. I think collaboration is always useful, and I believe that.
Is there a moment, and again, this may be a sentimental question, of eureka, as they say, where, as you have had so many moments that are breakthroughs?
Right. But you know, mathematics, especially very difficult and deep mathematics, it takes time. I mean, when I solved the Calabi conjecture, it takes me 6 years. And in many different stages, I have to develop some new ideas.
Yes.
right now I look back, it's trivial to solve, but on the other hand, before you say Eureka, I mean, so before you go through many detours without knowing what to do.
Okay.
And finally you reach it. But Einstein actually said the same thing about general relativity. He said, everything seems to be so tough when you're in the dark. When you see the light, it's
obvious.
It's obvious. So any idiot would have solved it, but
well, maybe not every idiot.
Anyway, so basically that's what it is. And talking with people give you some intuition. Some intuition the guy who told you may not even know. You can grab insights from a conversation with you, why you don't even know that you have given me some insight.
Yes.
You go to a curriculum, big talks, you got some insight from what they say. And written papers give you some insight. So all these things accumulate.
Yes.
For about
I'm seeing.
5 or 6 years.
Yes.
Suddenly the things put together, you come together. So this you cannot say there's one moment of Eureka, but sometimes many moments put together. That happens to me all the time. I don't feel any different from any problem.
I'm going to now ask another odd question, and that is you said it happens to you now. So the sentimental view that in mathematics the great ideas come before you're 30 or 40, the Fields Medal concept. What do you think about that? Because no other profession would restrict.
It's not only mathematics. I mean, theoretical physics also for younger people.
You do feel that there's something.
But yes, people getting a little bit older now. Not in the old days it's 30, 40, before 30, but now I think 40 or even 50 is probably not bad.
So the field medal should be
after 50 it kind of decays. But you can still do something, but not as good as before.
And you can recognize genius in others too.
Well, you can have intuition, which could be good, but you may not be able to carry out when you're getting older. But genius, not genius. When you're young, you can focus. You can keep on working on some problem for a long time, which most older people cannot do.
That's well said.
Yeah.
Again, because we are racing against a long life and rich life, where are you happily, permanently established in terms of a university? Because you go to quite a few places?
Yes. I was very happy in Stanford, for example. I was very difficult feeling for me when I left Stanford. But Princeton is an excellent place, Institute for Advanced Study. I went there. So I feel also very good in Institute for Advanced Study. But during those years, Institute for Advanced Study is, my wife doesn't have a job there. And more or less because of family problem, I did not stay in Institute for Advanced Study.
Okay.
So I left Institute for Advanced Study. I went to San Diego. I actually was able to build San Diego department to be one of the best in a matter of a couple of years. But it
in geometry,
more than geometry, and it unfortunately the colleagues in general doesn't feel in a similar way, and to look for a department of excellence in the world, and they feel there's some colleagues even ask, why does Yau think that research is so important? But that's my life. Excellence in research is, I always felt that that's my life.
You use the word excellence, of course. It would be natural in your life.
Yeah.
But as we come to the end, you've done so many things, but what do you think about the prospects of excellence in mathematics in China? You have been a supporter of Chinese intellectual life.
Yeah.
Return to China for a moment at the end of this, and your commitment to a mathematical education there.
So, assuming everything goes smoothly and no trouble come out, for example, war or whatever, and all system change and all that, I believe the present day situation of China is very similar to the late 19th century America. Late 19th century America, most scientific development come from graduate students who went from America to Europe, to Germany, to France, to England. Okay. By the beginning of 20th century, they start to have their own.
Right, and the university system really begins.
Right, really begin. So, for example, in Harvard, G.D. Berkeley was the first guy who actually did a great work, mathematical work in America without going to Europe at all.
Right.
That was a fundamental change for American
yes.
Mathematics community, I think. And I believe China is facing the same kind of opportunity. Namely, they have been sending students to Europe and to America, largely to America, and a lot of students going back. And now it is mature enough that they would be able to produce their own. If in the next 5 to 10 years they are able to do something similar to what G.D. Berkeley did, I think there will be phase transition in China. And they will establish themselves as a great country in fundamental research.
Again, as an outsider to all this process, I know that very often people speak of the dilemma in the Chinese tradition of education to this day, and you can correct me, is this rote learning, the professor speaks, you were referring to that before, the professor usually speaks, they listen, so this is not seen to be helpful in...
Absolutely, but it's changing because many of the students coming back from America is changing them.
Like the fellow who influenced you from Berkeley.
Right. They are going back and they are getting more and more, and society is richer and richer now, and they are able to invest money into fundamental research, into things that they may not see to be absolutely useful at the beginning.
That's the key.
That's very important.
To allow research that is not obviously useful.
Right. So I think gradually they're changing to that. So I feel right now the present days of Chinese scientific development is very close to the beginning of the 20th century of America. So for America, in a matter of 20, 30 years, becomes one of the greatest.
Yes.
And I believe unless things change, China will behave like that.
That's the last word. Thank you very much.
Thank you.